Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Adelina and I make videos about living in this tiny house on wheels and living a more intentional life. One of the questions that I get asked a lot since my move is, how am I finding being away from the kids? For those of you who are new to the channel, I have two children. I have a son who's 29 years old named Keaton, and a trans daughter who is 23 years old named Jamie. And both of them live back in Calgary, where I moved from last fall. And the question is a good one because if you've seen any of the videos with Keaton, if you've heard me talk about my children, you know how close we are. I was a single mom since the kids were 10 and 4. And I'm trying to keep Sophie's tail out of my coffee. So we've always been really close. And being a mom is the most important thing I have ever done and will ever do in my life. I have said forever that if the only thing they say about me after I'm gone is she was a good mom, then I'll be totally happy. Because that is been the greatest gift, greatest challenge, and the greatest reward of my life so far. I get messages from a lot of you who have this dream of living a different life, an alternative life, whether it be in an RV, a van, a tiny house, a yurt, or just downsizing or moving to the place that you've wanted to be, you've wanted to live in forever. The video that I made last Sunday about the leap of faith actually was so interesting to read your comments, because so many of you shared that your family and your friends do not understand and they're not supportive. Well, I've been very, very lucky because both of my kids are super supportive of my dream, always have been. We're super excited about the tiny house. I think they were a little sad when I sold the townhouse that they had grown up in, but there was never a lack of support and excitement for me and for my dream. And I think also they were kind of proud of me for having followed through and made it happen. Moving away from them is probably been, well, it's in the top 3 of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I didn't make the decision lightly, but I knew I couldn't stay because my dream was always to move to the coast and staying in Calgary. I had already stayed a couple years longer than I had intended because we had the pandemonium and I wanted to be close to the kids. I needed the support network. They needed the support network. And it just wasn't a good time to be finding a place and moving during all of that. But moving was always going to happen, and they were, sorry, Soph, and they were supportive. But I know that it was really hard for them. There were tearful goodbyes, and we were all sad. But I knew it wasn't the last time I was going to see them, obviously. I'm only a province away, not a country away or anything like that. And Jamie came with me on the move and stayed for almost 2 weeks after I got here, which was awesome because then they got to see the house in its spot and where I'm living, and we got some amazing one-on-one time on that drive and the time that we had here. So that was awesome. And then Keaton came for Christmas, so stayed for just over a week. And we had so much fun. You saw him on a video over Christmas. It was awesome. It was great. And I loved that. But then he had to go home, which obviously made me sad, made him sad. I think intellectually I knew this was going to be a difficult move to be away from the kiddos. But it really hit home for me a few weeks ago, because Keaton called me to let me know that he had a bad infection in his thigh. Now, I know I've mentioned it in other videos, but again, so many of you are new here. Keaton, my oldest, who's 29, is a juvenile diabetic. He was 4 years old when he was diagnosed. And from that point forward, first us and then he did, he's been testing his blood multiple times a day, injecting 2, 3, sometimes more times a day. And one of his favorite injection spots is his thighs. But what happened was he and his dad were driving up to see the grandparents in Leduc, and he injected himself in his thigh on the drive up. Within about an hour, by the time they got there, he had a lump on his thigh. And over the course of the weekend, that lump got bigger, red, hot, and he should have gone into the emergency room in Leduc on the weekend, but he didn't. So on Monday, he went into the emergency room in Calgary. Luckily, there's a emergency room within walking distance of his apartment. And by the time he got in there, there was a big infection. What the doctor thinks happened is when he injected, he hit a vein, which then caused a hematoma, whatever, a lump. Then that got infected. And it was serious. Now, if you know anything about diabetics, I don't know much about type 2 diabetics, adult onset, what they call. But I do know a lot about juvenile diabetics, what's also called type 1, insulin dependent. And one of the things that you always are aware of is that they don't heal as well as those of us who don't have diabetes. And so you're always on the lookout for infection. You're always making sure that, checking toes and fingers, because those are the areas that are the most compromised, especially once you've had diabetes for a long period of time. So he had this infection, and they had to, trigger warning. If you're squeamish, if you don't want to hear about this, then you should probably fast forward. And I will put a timestamp on the bottom here of where you should fast forward to. All right? Okay. So they had to lance this and drain this abscess and pack it full of gauze or something, because you have to leave it open so that it can heal from the bottom up. Anyways, when he messaged me, it was Monday. So he had to go back on Tuesday, back to the emergency room. They had to lance it again. On Wednesday, he was at the wound care clinic at the Rocky View Hospital. And things were not getting better. So on Thursday, when he messaged me, he was... One of the things about my eldest, one of his superpowers is that Keaton has this amazing ability to always be positive, to always look on the positive side of things, to, pull himself out of the lows, the dumps when he's feeling down. It's his superpower. I've always thought so. But I could tell he was really, really feeling down and scared. And when he messaged me on Thursday from inside the clinic, the wound care clinic, I can't remember what it's actually called, and he told me that they were concerned because the infection was not getting better, and he was on these oral antibiotics that were the strongest oral antibiotics you could take, and they were unfortunately the side effects of those oral antibiotics are that upset stomach, diarrhea, lots of unpleasant things. But the infection was not getting better. They had drawn a circle around it and said, told him that if the redness gets close to that circle, then go straight to the emergency room. And it was getting close. It was not getting better. So the doctor at the clinic sent him for an ultrasound, I think it was, and they found a second pocket of infection, about half an inch away from the first pocket of infection. So they had to lance that, drain that, all those things. And what they were going to do, what they did, was give him this portable pack IV, and he had to wear that and have the intravenous antibiotics for the next couple of days. This whole time I am, worried, sick, but expecting things to get better because he's getting excellent care. I mean, I'll say Canada's not perfect, but we have excellent health care, and we're very fortunate because since he was diagnosed at 4 years old, We have been in and out of the Children's Hospital and different clinics. He's got an endocrinologist. All of those things, and we haven't paid for any of that. And the clinic, the emergency room visits, and this clinic, it was all part of our healthcare system. But they were concerned, and so they put him on this IV. And when he messaged me to say they sent me for an ultrasound, they found another infection, they're going to put me on this mobile antibiotic pump, I messaged him back, "I'm coming." That's all I said. And he wrote back, "Here?" And I just sent him a picture of an airplane. I had already been looking at flights and was, already 90% planning on going. As soon as I heard that they had found another infection, a secondary infection, that was it. So I flew out on Friday. The next morning, I spent until Monday just taking care of him, going to his appointments with them, helping him clean the dressing and all of those things, cleaning his apartment, because of course it was a mess, feeding him and just being there for him. And I realized how hard it was to be away from my kids, no matter how old they are, when one of them is sick. It was so difficult. And I think that has been the biggest challenge, the biggest difficulty, the biggest heartache I've had living here, not being able to be there, to mother them, to nurse them. Even if all I could do is just be there for moral support and making sure they're eating well and making sure things are tidy. And that's all I did while I was there, was cook, clean, and make sure that his spirits were up. And he did admit to me that when they told him he was going to have to wear that portable IV pack, that it really scared him. By the time we went to our final appointment on Sunday at the wound care clinic, it was getting so much better. The intravenous antibiotics were really working well. Finding that secondary infection was obviously very important. The wound was healing. They didn't need to pack it anymore. They just irrigated it, and they said he could come back the following Friday. So he didn't need to come back until the Friday that week. But the doctor said to me, and this really, it still makes me feel scared, get that feeling. He said to me that if we hadn't been able to get a handle on that infection, his words were, it could have been limb-threatening or worse. And, I heard it, I understood it, but, I was there to make sure he was okay and his spirits are up. But the next day when I flew home and I landed on the island, I was driving home from the airport, that I just got hit by this wave of emotion, because that just, the reality hit of how serious this was, how potentially devastating it could have been, and just the thought that anything could happen to one of my babies was overwhelming. But he's fine, and it's all good now, and we'll hopefully never have that happen again. But yes, for those of you who have asked, it's very difficult to be away from Keaton, away from Jamie, when anything like this happens, when they're sad, when they're sick. I wanted to share that because I missed a Wednesday video when I got back. I was just so overwhelmed when I got back by everything, and I just didn't have it in me to film a recipe. I just needed to take care of myself, which any of you parents out there will understand what I mean. When one of your kids needs you, you go into this mode of just dealing with everything, being there, doing whatever, and then after it's all done, then you kind of fall apart a little bit. Then the emotions hit you, and that's what happened to me that following week. I'm grateful that I had the financial ability to get on a plane and go see my kids. I'm grateful that I work for a company that was absolutely supportive. My manager was like, absolutely, just go. Don't even, just go. So that was awesome. I'm grateful that you know, my kid has this amazing spirit and positive energy, because I think that really helps the healing process. You know, I'm grateful for my amazing friends that were my support during all of this, so that I had somebody to talk to. And, you know, I'm grateful for Lauren the cat nanny, who came and took care of Sophie while I was away. And you know what? Coming back to the island, driving home, I was again overwhelmed with this feeling of I'm home. You know, this is home. Even in, I guess it's 5 short months, this island, this place has already become my sanctuary and my home. And so I'm very grateful for that too. I just want to say, I got my first piece of viewer mail the other day. So thank you so much. You know who you are. That was incredible. I do have a post office box, but I'd never gotten viewer mail before. And it was so exciting, and just came at a time when I really needed it. You know, I was feeling a little down, and then I saw this in my mailbox, and it was awesome. Now, I will admit I don't check my mailbox that often. Every week, usually every 2 weeks. So, you know, it's just one of those things I always forget to check. But yeah, that was pretty exciting. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And also, for those of you who haven't subscribed, I just want to ask you to please subscribe. I noticed that only 30% of my viewers, roughly 30%, are subscribers. Subscribing doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help the channel grow, and it lets YouTube know that the channel provides some value to its viewers, and then the algorithm will recommend it to more people, more viewers who are interested in what we talk about, what we're doing here. And so it's just such a simple way that you can support the channel and really help it grow. So if you haven't already, I would, you know, be honored if you would subscribe, click the notification bell so that you get notified when I upload videos. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, a thumbs down if you don't. The YouTube algorithm likes both interactions, so that helps the channel grow as well. And again, I appreciate it. So guys, I just wanted to share that. I wanted to say thank you for your patience with me being a little bit distant for the last little while. I just had a lot to deal with, and I had to take care of my baby, and then I had to take care of myself after. But I know you guys understand. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to share that with you, and to say, Sophie is going to bite me, to say, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, be brave. I love you guys, and I'll see you next Sunday.
Hey everybody, Keaton here. I wanted you to know that I'm doing just fine these days. Mom's help was absolutely invaluable. I'd rather face a doctor with Mom by my side than pretty much anything else. I also wanted you to know that I read all the comments, and I know I was raised very well by a very amazing woman. And I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. I'm so happy to see this community rise up around my mother, and it's a really sincerely beautiful thing.
Oh, Sophie. I'll just work around you. You stay exactly where you are, and I will just fit myself around you. No problem.